It's Ruth with Simply Sustainable Family, and I did a video earlier about soft rot with broccoli. Another issue that I've been having lately is blossom end rot with my tomatoes. And I mentioned in the broccoli video that we've had some pretty unusual weather here for Maine. We had drought in the spring, which I know a lot of the country has had lately. And then that was followed by some torrential rainstorms that we wouldn't really get the soil completely dried out or the plants completely dried out, and then it would rain again. And so that has caused issues with the tomatoes because blossom end rot, as many of you probably know, is usually a calcium deficiency for tomatoes. And it can be the fact that your soil just doesn't have the calcium in it that it needs. That can happen if you're not composting or fertilizing correctly. We typically use our cow manure to fertilize, and then we'll sometimes supplement with some lime if we feel that the pH needs to be raised. But if you aren't doing those things, then there could actually be true calcium deficiency in your soil. However, the more common reason is that the calcium is available in the soil, but the plant isn't able to take it up. And that can be from drought, so too little water. It can be from overwatering, so like the torrential rainstorms that we're having now. It can be from inconsistent watering, so you're drenching and drowning the plant in one moment, and then a couple of weeks later, it feels like you're digging in hard pan. The soil is so dry. So that has been why my tomatoes have had this issue this year, is just the fact that we've had the very inconsistent water. And as I also mentioned in the previous video, my irrigation system is not where I want it to be. It's something we're still working on improving here on the homestead. So currently I have an overhead irrigation system, which is truly not ideal. Plants do much better with being watered at the base. They will stay healthier, much less disease issues. Even some of the pest issues can be better with base of the plant irrigation. Because one of the problems with overhead irrigation is that in order for enough water to get down through the plants and into the soil, you have to saturate the upper parts of the plants, the foliage or the heads, and the plants just don't do well with that. It's a breeding ground for bacteria. So anyway, I will show you what blossom end rot looks like on a tomato. As long as you cut the area of the blossom rot off and get any black areas off, the rest of the tomato, there's nothing wrong with it, not per se. It's not going to harm you to eat it. I've done that plenty of times, cut off the bad part and used the rest of the tomato. But you have to be careful because depending on how advanced the blossom end rot is, even the good part of the tomato can be kind of mealy and almost like a pithy consistency, so it might just not taste very good. So use your own discretion when you're determining whether you still want to use those parts of the tomato. Fortunately, I have an area of my garden that I planted tomatoes in that the soil has drained a little bit better. So I do have about 2/3 of my tomato plants that haven't had any issues at all. So I've been able to avoid having to deal with cutting off the blossom end rot and having a less than ideal tomato. I've just used the tomatoes from the other areas of my garden, but it's up to you and what you have available. So with that being said, as far as preventing it in the future, definitely try to keep your watering consistent. Do a nice good soak, don't oversaturate, and then water on a consistent schedule if the rain isn't conducive to that. If you are getting a lot of rain, then back off on the watering because you don't want the plant to get oversaturated. If you test your soil's pH, if it is on the acidic side, you're definitely going to want to lime or do something like that to bring the pH up. A lime has a lot of calcium in it, so it's an excellent source of calcium if your soil is truly deficient. And then just if at all possible, do the at the base of the plant irrigation instead of overhead irrigation. And that should prevent most of the blossom end rot issues. Mine have only been on tomatoes this year, but I know some other folks in the area have said that they've had issues with blossom end rot on their peppers. So it can happen on other plants as well. So here I've got 3 different examples. This tomato right here, I've got them upside down so you can see, because the blossom end is opposite the stem end. So this is a healthy tomato. That's what you want to see. Just a little tiny pinpoint brown area is fine, or none at all. And then this tomato is starting the blossom end rot. So you'll see how the brown area is starting to extend out, and then it will just continue to grow, and it will go from brown to black. And then this tomato back here is advanced blossom end rot. And you can see it's literally just eaten away into the entire tomato, and it's just rotting into the ground now that it's fallen off. But it will get to almost that point even on the plant. And then eventually the plant will drop it, and it will just finish decaying at that point. But yep, that's what blossom end rot looks like on a tomato.